Dungeons & Dragons is a TTRPG based on Tolkien-style fantasy like dragons and orcs, but also original lore and locations such as the Demogorgon, Vecna, the Mind Flayer, and other things that I'm sure that Stranger Things will use as a namesake for one of their villains. It is easily one of the most famous, if not the most famous TTRPG out there. But how did it come to be? Today I'm going to talk about the creation of Dungeons & Dragons and the man behind it all, Gary Gygax. Gary Gygax, born in Chicago, Illinois, was a very social child, joining a gang of friends he called the Kenmore Pirates. They were lucky enough to call half of an alley as their own, but another friend group would often wage fake wars with them to claim it. After his friend group had a serious altercation with another gang, his parents decided to move him from Chicago to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin with his grandparents. After moving, Gary grew a love of fantasy and sci-fi after playing a bunch of card and board games with his friends and hearing stories of dragons and wizards from his father. This obsession with war games and fantasy would never fully go away even after he had a child with Mary Jo Powell after being dismissed from the army for having pneumonia. In fact, on one occasion, his wife misheard the sounds of him playing TTRPGs with his friends as him having an affair, which was cleared up quickly, and I'm sure something like that will never come up again. Eventually, he joined the war game publishing company known as Gaiden Games, where he helped produce a bunch of different board games, tabletop games, and war games, as well as come up with the idea of rolling a 20-sided die instead of the standard at the time 6. Eventually, he and another game publisher known as Dave Arneson would work together to finally create the first edition of Dungeons & Dragons, running their own games to playtest it. But it wouldn't be published until much, much later, with some help from Don Kane and Brian Bloom, who, with Gygax, made up Tactical Studies Rules, aka TSR. And even through all of the personal and professional problems, such as Gygax's longtime friend and collaborator Don Kane passing away, the Satanic Panic, and a very messy divorce with his wife, the sales for D&D would not slow down, and Gygax would only get more and more famous. Cut to the modern day, where D&D, now at its 5th edition, spearheaded creatively by Jeremy Crawford, is one of the most well-known nerdy things you can be a fan of. In fact, I'd even bring up an argument that it may actually be considered mainstream at this point. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's probably not normal if you know as much about the game as Matthew Mercer or Brennan Lee Mulligan, but with Critical Role being the most followed channel on Twitch, and a movie coming out with Chris Pine and Hugh Grant, I'd like to say that it is well known at this point, and will only get more famous as the years go by, despite Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro Games trying to shred it to absolute capitalist pieces. That's it. Goodbye. If you're the teacher that I was doing the assignment for, at this point you can click off. There's nothing left for you. I've covered all of the information that was in the essay. For the other people watching, though, I have a favor to ask. I have a YouTube channel that will probably be linked in the description, and I want to make RPG-themed videos, TTRPG specifically, but I don't really have any video ideas. I have a lot of props and stuff I could probably use for sketches, but I kind of want to make more essay stuff on RPGs, kind of like what I do on this channel, so if you have any ideas for that, please leave those down in the comments. And yeah, that's about all I have to say.